Roberta, I am welcoming you, my CEO, my female CEO, I should say, with open arms. There aren't many of us in the world, but we are growing and we are taking over. I do believe that. We're going to talk all about what it's like to be a woman in your industry and really as a CEO in general, and how you were able to grow Fits into a multi-million dollar company with a team of 35 people, 4 facilities, and 10 plus patents. But before we go into that, can you let everybody know what Fits is all about?
Yeah, wow, what an incredible introduction. Thank you. Sitting here thinking, what is she talking about me? Like, how did this happen?
It's funny
Um,
because we're all like
Fitz,
working from home and like sitting behind computers now, and it's hard to believe that
yeah,
we're actually like running companies.
yes, yeah, it's wild.
But you're doing it.
So yeah, yeah. Fitz is a company that I started with my dad. My dad is an inventor type. He's kind of like a really zany dude. And he came up with this product. The first product was a vent. So we actually used to be called Aria Vent because we went to market with a single vent. And the
Mm,
whole ethos of Fits is that we want to reimagine mundane, unloved products that elevate your space. So interior design, everyone loves interior design. They really take care of the spaces that they live in. And it's just curating those small things that, are necessary building components like vents and light switches and fans in the bathroom, but they don't look great.
yeah.
So we are on a mission to change the way that you see all of those things.
Yeah. And to like paint a picture for people too, it's not just like a normal looking vent that is like the same color of your floor. Like it straight up blends right in. It's almost like you're taking a cutout, like let's say if you were having the floor vent, a cutout of your floor that makes it look super seamless. So there's obviously like a border to get the air through in and out, but it looks so gorgeous. And you use the actual material of whatever surface this ugly thing is on, right, to make it blend in. And like when I saw the product, I was like, oof, my designer in me was like, yes, like I want to change my whole house to them.
Yeah, they're very different and they're all designed to just kind of hide in plain sight so that you build a beautiful house, you curate a beautiful space even if you're a renter, you're just moving in, and you want to make sure that every component of the home just kind of like gels together, works together.
Hmm.
And so for my dad, the inventor, it just blew his mind that we were working on like he was working on these like multi-million dollar projects where they were spending so much time curating every little inch of it, and then you would just slap like an ugly brown vent in the room. He's
Yeah.
like, what? That doesn't make sense. We can do better than that. And
Yeah. And
so
how come
that's
no
kind
one
of
thought of it
where it all
sooner,
started.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Like, where
Yes.
has this been all
So
of our lives? This should be a standard for all homes. Forget like the multi-million dollar homes. What about like the regular Joe Schmo? Let's just throw out the plastic ones.
well, that is our mission. Our mission is to
Take
become the new
over.
standard. So
Love it.
I we're gonna get there. Yeah.
We're going to get there. All right. So you mentioned working with your dad. So was this a collaboration from the beginning, or what does that relationship look like? And how do you balance that? Because, work and family life can be challenging sometimes. So how do you kind of establish those boundaries and make sure that, work doesn't flow into family matters and vice versa?
Yeah. So my family has had a business for my whole life. My parents always worked together, and
Cool.
I grew up in that. That was my summer job, was working for my family's business. I didn't love it, but I was grateful to have job security.
Right.
And so when I went to university, the whole point of going to university was like to never have to work for my family again, to get,
Oh,
a quote unquote
interesting.
real job.
Yeah.
And so so shortly after school, I was traveling, and when my dad messaged me with this idea, he would, he's notorious for sending people email in the middle of the night, being like, "I have the new biggest thing. I already got the domain names, and I'm going to file a
Oh
patent
my
and all
God.
this
Like he
stuff."
goes all out.
Like, yes, the amount of domains that this man owns is out of
Oh
this
my
world.
God. That's
It's
hilarious.
outlandish. But he gets very excited because, like I said, that's the type of person he is. That's how
Yeah.
he thinks. And so when I received that email while I was traveling, it was not out of the ordinary. It had happened many times before. And he said, I have this idea. I don't really know how to sell it. You have nothing going for you.
No.
In so many ways. He's like, you don't have a job
He's like, I
and you're
love you, daughter,
traveling with
but
no, yes, he's like, you don't have a return flight. So why don't you come home and just help me put together a brand and a website? He was an early adopter of Amazon. He was like, I need to put this on
cool.
Amazon. And so that's kind of how it started. So I very reluctantly joined my dad because I just couldn't get over this thing of I don't want to work for you. Like, I want to
Hmm.
do cool things that my other friends were doing at these, like, cool new companies downtown and, you know, all of that.
Yeah, it's almost like you want what you don't have in a weird way, but you've obviously turned a corner. So, what did that transition look like now? Obviously, you've stuck around for a reason. I'm assuming you like it and you're happy. So, where did that shift happen? And when did you realize, hey, this is actually for me and I like what I'm doing?
Yeah. So I'll just take a step back for a second. I listen
Hmm.
to podcasts like this all the time, hearing other entrepreneurs' stories. That's like really like what inspires me when I'm feeling down. And it's just so nice to hear people's stories. And a
Hmm.
lot of times people glaze over this part. And so I want to be very clear of like how I tell my story in this
Tell it.
way. The first year was not even like a first year. You don't like have a solid start date. You just kind of start doing this and working on it. And then you look back 6 months and you're like, oh, has it been 6 months that I've been trying to put together a brand and a website? So like it's a really hard to say like when it actually started.
That's fair,
Um,
actually. That's a good point. Because if when I think of like when I say I launched Nomad Creative, it was 2018, but that's when like my website was ready to go. My portfolio had been uploaded. Like I had probably been actually working on it for like over 6 months before that, you know?
right. And so that 6 months for you, and it was kind of like 18 months for me.
Hmm.
It's a really weird time because you're working on this thing. It's kind of embarrassing to tell other people, so you don't really tell other people. And like it just is like you have so much like kind of shame of like it's just me and my dad selling these weird vents that he made out of my family's garage. Like I made a web like it was just weird. Like it
Why
felt
did you feel
very
embarrassed though?
because I think a big part of it was because I was with my dad, and it was
Okay.
just I know what that sounds like to other people, and so we were very clear when we started. If we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this together as partners, like
Hmm.
equal partners. And he was very down for that, and so that's kind of been the tone of our relationship ever since. He is
Mm.
really great at building product, and he knows that very well. I don't step on his toes there, and I've kind of proven myself in like actually building the business and the brand and the team and like how the inner workings of everything happen. So we kind of both stay in our lanes, and that was true from the beginning and also today. Um, and so I think that's part of the secret sauce of working with family is
Know your
understanding that like,
rules.
yes, exactly, which feels somewhat unnatural because obviously he's my dad. He's like,
Yeah.
held me as a baby, and now he's sees me as his equal. It's strange, but
But that's actually
yeah,
very beautiful and healthy, I have to say, you know?
yeah. I think it's the only really way to do it. It wasn't like he started it. He built this whole company, and then I joined after, and kind of had to fall into the lines of the grooves that he set.
Right.
We did it together, so
Hmm.
we could just be like really mindful the whole way through. Um, but yeah, that first like 18 months, it's a strange time. I was also very
That's
young.
strange. Yeah. How old
Like
were you? How old are you?
I
I'm curious.
I was 24.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're 24, everyone's in their first jobs. A lot
Hmm.
of my friends were working at tech companies that like had these cool corporate cultures, and like just think about me and my dad in my family's garage making no money. I was packaging
It's
boxes.
how it
It's just like
starts.
very uncool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I feel like, and even now that sounds like so, fun and exciting. But I don't know if at that time, 7 years ago, it was like that. I just wasn't exposed to it because I was so young, but it
Hmm.
felt very unexciting for me. And so I was really reluctant to like hop on this. I was like, okay, I'll build you a website, then I'm gonna go. And I actually went back to school to be an interior designer.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, I'll make you a box and then I'll get you on Amazon. And then you need to figure somebody out to like help you do this. And then about a year and a half in, I realized, what am I doing? Like, I'm gonna, this is working. People are buying this. I'm
Yeah.
being a brat. I can learn a lot here and I can kind of like do things the way that I want to because I'm by myself essentially. My dad wasn't really involved in the day to day. He's still not.
Yeah.
And I kind of came to of like, it doesn't really matter that I don't have a burning passion for vents or building materials, um, because what I'm doing, I do have a passion for.
Yeah, it's the entrepreneurship part of it, like the building of the team and the business. And so it doesn't necessarily matter what the actual business is, as long as it still aligns with your general values and you feel comfortable with what you're selling, then business is business.
Yeah, that's one thing I learned from my dad. He told me, like when I was younger and I was working as a receptionist for him, he would say like, you need to be able to find the passion in everything you do because that's the only way you're gonna survive essentially. If you
Yeah.
only want to follow things that you're passionate about, you like you're going to miss so many opportunities in life. And so that kind of hit me square in the face about a year and a half in. Like, let me try to find the passion here. And when I did that, I realized it's not really about what you sell, it's more about how you sell it.
Yeah. That's such an interesting perspective, too, I find, because in a lot of the people that I speak to and interview, they're all about like following your passions and your dreams, and that if it doesn't align, don't go that route. But I love your perspective on you can find passion in anything that you're doing. It's a matter of finding it and understanding where it is, right? And of course, maybe you never will. That's a possibility. But the fact that you did and you gave it that chance and you tried and you went forward, I think that's also a good lesson for people that like, yes, there will be hard times. Yes, sometimes you're probably going to want to give up. Yes, sometimes you're going to question, like, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing, what I want to be doing? But if you push through, eventually you'll kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel and get that clarity and be like, you know what? I actually really fucking love this.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think like that's part of the lie that we were kind of told. I'm
Mm,
assuming we're the same generation. So our generation of like go to university and then you're going to get a
yeah.
really good job and you can follow your passion and that can be whatever you want to do, you're going to be able to do. And so a lot of times like people will just fall into like starting companies of out of a need that they personally had, or they are like the main consumer of their company. That's probably like the most common entrepreneurial story, which is great. Like
Hmm.
a lot of beautiful things come from that. But there's so many different types of stories, and mine is not like that. Mine's actually literally the opposite. Like, I
Hmm.
don't think this is cool and this is like strange, and then kind of coming to and realizing, oh, this is actually a lot of fun, but I'm not the target demographic, I'm not the target consumer. I can actually be a lot more creative with how I approach this and
Mm,
not get so like not have your blinders on, right? When you're so focused on like, well, what would I want, what kind of packaging or product would I be interested in, it becomes quite limiting in my
yeah,
opinion.
that's an interesting thing, that you're not that target demographic and that maybe you don't see things out of the normal consumer's eye. So how do you balance that? Like, how do you make sure that you are giving them what they want, understanding their voice if you are not that target? Like, what strategies do you put in place to make sure that you are still listening and paying attention?
um Yeah, that's a great question. Um, Social media is an incredible way. Customers will tell you what they want.
Hmm.
They love to give feedback, especially when you're starting up. They love to share with you, which is actually great because they pretty much build the product pipeline for you.
Yeah.
So I think being open to hearing that feedback, even if you disagree with it. Recently we rebranded our company, and only when we rebranded it did we realize how passionate everyone felt about our previous name and our previous brand.
Really? So
And
what was
I
it?
we used to be called Aria Event.
Right. Oh,
That is
yes.
still the name of our main product, but we found it limiting because we're not just event company anymore.
Yeah.
That's what we started out of my family's garage. but now we do
Mhm.
so many other things, and we thought it's just time to do this more thoughtfully now that we actually know who we are. We've had some
Yeah.
time with our products and our customers and our brand, and like now we can actually be more mindful. To be honest, our event was just the last best name that my dad and I had in like a 3 month back and forth of
It was
all
the
the
domain he
bad names.
purchased.
Exactly. It was an available domain, and I was like, I'm done talking about this. Let's just do it. Like, what does it even matter? Who knows if this name is even going to matter one day, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, so yeah, in doing the rebrand, we got a lot of feedback from um our customers. People loved it. Some people don't like the change, right? They take some time to adapt to it.
Of course, it's
And
always
even though
like that.
I feel very strongly that our name is going to make sense. It makes sense, and people are going to grow to love it. The ones that are hesitant, resistant to change. I mean, that always happens. But it's good to know. Oh my God, people care so deeply that they're messaging us about this rebrand, that they love the old name, right? Like,
Mm.
it doesn't matter,
The
even
fact that they
positive or
even
negative
noticed.
feedback.
Yeah, the fact that they even
Yeah.
noticed and they cared and they went and they had a voice. I think that's super important, like you said, is to pay attention what your customers are saying. Because especially when you are, let's say the target and you're creating something maybe to suit your needs or to solve your problem, you might have this tunnel vision. And then just because someone says that, oh, it's not working for them, or they would prefer it a different way, you might be pushing back because you're connecting personally to it. Whereas in your case, it's the complete opposite. You're just there to listen and apply and make those changes. And like you said, it kind of builds your product pipeline from there, because if they might even have suggestions or present new challenges or struggles or whatnot, and kind of give you that next idea, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think you have to also understand the context of the industry and the space that we're in. We're in the building materials products,
Yeah.
or yeah, building material products industry, right? So
Hmm.
brand is not, they're not as thought out as other brands in cosmetics or makeup or
Right.
whatever. Like,
Hmm.
those brands are beautiful. Every part of it is like absolutely stunning. There is so
Hmm.
much thought in that. That is not happening in other industries. And so I was really inspired by other companies who were taking these like really unsexy products in these very unsexy industries and then just making them cool. Like, a perfect example are all of the box mattresses.
Yeah.
Like, what? It's a mattress. Like, we used
Yeah.
to buy them from Sleep Country. Like,
Yeah.
it was a very unfun experience. And now it's like, a topic, like they advertise so heavily. It's like a it almost becomes like our identity of like which box mattress we decided to purchase and what the experience was like.
Yeah, for sure. And they all have, well, a lot of them have really good, strong branding too, and visual identity, how they can be identified, what they look like, how they communicate, all of those elements that probably in your industry was kind of second thought. Like it was never really top of mind on how you present yourself as a business. It's just like, hey, I have these products because everyone needs them. So it doesn't really matter what I look like as a business because people are going to come and buy them because they need them regardless, right? Whereas like you were like, you know what, I'm going to approach this differently and say like, yeah, they need them, but what if they want them to look good? It's like you're almost targeting like the want from people, because the need, it's like, yeah, okay, go buy the plastic one that looks like crap, who cares? But it's more of the
Mhm.
want, and that obviously luxury high end appeal, you have a clear target demographic. How have you been able to navigate like being in this male dominated industry as a woman?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, honestly, very surprisingly to myself, a good chunk of the buyers at the big box companies are actually women. And
Mm,
so it's not as siloed as you would imagine. I think just like little small things, nothing major has ever happened. But,
yeah.
when I walk into a room, especially when I was 25 years old, right, I would
Mm.
walk in, be the youngest person there. Everyone is old enough, some people to be my grandfather.
Oh my God.
And so, yeah, like they're from a different generation, they have a different point of
Yeah.
view. And
They've been
here I
around.
am walking in, right, with my dad. So
Mm,
immediately, like, there's already okay, I need to talk to him, not to her. And
right.
my dad has always been excellent at being like, I'm not the one you need to talk to. You need to chat with her. And so having people like kind of, you just see like that shift of, oh, okay, this is strange. Are you sure? Like,
Right. That's
you know,
interesting.
um, it's an interesting experience, but I think again, there's a competitive advantage to it. I don't know of any other company in our industry who's led by a female CEO of my age. And so how we do things is obviously different because I'm running it, right? I have a
And you're
completely
killing it.
different perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have a totally different perspective, and
Yeah.
that actually sets us apart in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Like you don't really notice it, and we're not a female brand by any means. Like our
Yeah.
main demographic is men. Um, yeah, I don't see it as a negative. I see it as a huge opportunity, and has been, no doubt.
I think any woman anywhere is a huge opportunity. Let's just say that.
Yes. I love that.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the team and the company culture. I know that that's super important for you guys. You've built this business sustainably too, with profit top of mind. So let's talk a little bit about that. What does the team look like, and how did you get to where you are today, where you have, over 35 employees working for you?
Yeah, so the team, not surprisingly, does not look like any other team in our industry. So
Okay.
I
How
don't
so?
think we have never hired. I have to make sure. I'm pretty sure we have never hired anyone that is from this industry. Every person we hire comes from somewhere else, which
Cool.
again is a competitive advantage because we approach things in a different way than the rest of
Yeah.
the people in our industry. We have a majority of our leaders are women. That wasn't like really intentional, although I'm
It
very
just
mindful
happened.
of,
Yeah.
yes, I'm very mindful of having, full female teams or full male teams. I think it's very important to have a good balance of both and also have, be mindful of adversity to make sure that you're getting different points of view and people from different walks of life. It just
Hmm.
enriches the culture and also enriches the brand and makes you more mindful, all the all the things that
Yeah.
we don't have to get into. Yeah, did I answer your question? Did you ask me? Team, how did
Yeah,
I
I
get
mean,
here?
just kind of how you got to that point, right? Because you started off with zero. It was just you and your dad. So now you have 35 people working for you and you have 4 facilities. That's a lot to manage. So what did that kind of growth journey look like, and also from a profitability standpoint too?
Yeah, so the growth had to be sustainable. We've never put ourselves in a position where we were taking on more than we can afford. That was top of mind. Everything, like this whole company has been completely bootstrapped. We never fundraised and none of that stuff because um, we wanted to make sure that it was a viable, sustainable business, and we weren't just, living off fumes or on a dream. The team growth was fairly quick. We went from two, myself and my dad, to four to 13. I think we went to 13 in 2021, and then we were 23 or 24 in 2022, and now we're ending at 35 in 2023. And really, the idea of adding to the team. So from the beginning, we've always built our business to scale. Every process that we do needs to work today and needs to work, in a year from now when we're 5x what we're doing today. If the process doesn't work at 5x, the process is broken already today. We need to start
Hmm.
fixing it.
So
And so the
when you
same
say
thing goes,
process though, sorry, before you continue, when you say
yeah,
process, like could you be more specific? Because process can mean a lot of different things in different businesses. So like what is one
yeah,
process within your business that you've made sure is working?
yeah. Okay. Uh, a really simple example would be our e-commerce or fulfillment, right?
Hmm.
So if I'm getting 50 orders a day, however I'm processing those orders, if it's going to take me 2 hours to process 50 orders, it is not going to work when those 50 orders turn into 500 orders because then it's going
Right.
to take me like 3 days to fill that. So
Hmm.
the process that we have to fulfill those orders at 50 needs to work all the way up to 500. And if it's not working today to sustain 500, then that process needs to be rebuilt today so that when we get to 500, We
Mm,
don't break. Everything can
right.
still flow smoothly.
Planning in
So
advance makes sense.
right. So part of that is, how are we pulling those orders into our ERP system? How are we actually fulfilling them in the warehouses? How many people are there? The solution isn't to add 10 people to fulfill 500 orders. The solution is to stay the same size or slightly larger, and then
Hmm.
have, be able to optimize and scale that
Yeah.
process. So
Build
a lot of
efficiencies.
exactly, a lot of the early years, I would say the past like 4 or 5 years, we're really focusing on those. Like, the company is growing. It is not going to stop growing. That has become quite clear. So we
Hmm.
need to start preparing. And a part of that preparation was also hiring people, but being mindful that we're not just hiring people to solve problems, like that fulfillment example I gave. I don't want to add 10 people when I know I can solve that by, optimizing a process.
Right.
I want to make sure that we add people in the places where um, we're not putting them in positions where they're doing just like repetitive work that can be automated, right? We
Mm,
want people in positions where we actually need their brain power, their strategic thinking, to creative thinking, to do those things that an automated Excel sheet cannot do. In other words,
right. That's true. And that automation portion, I think, is super important as well. Those are things that I've been kind of implementing over the years with Nomad too. It's like as you grow, you realize you need these things in order to be sustainable and to be able to grow and to
yeah,
scale. And it's like, okay, now I'm in a point where like I have a certain team in place. I trust them. Everything works. We have the processes down. Everything is documented. So if someone comes, someone goes, like there's no issue there. And then in terms of like, I mean, I'm an agency, so it's a little bit different, but like our onboarding process, what does that look like? And we have to make sure that the
yes,
experience is the same for every single client too. Like I'm sure for you, that has to be the same buying experience for every single client because
hmm
your business is not just your product. There's so much more attached to that. And it's like the whole client experience is really what I think what makes brands today different than, 20, 30, 40 years ago is the experience portion and how people feel when they're interacting and engaging with brands, which is essentially what makes them memorable and what makes them stand out.
hmm yeah, absolutely. It's every little bit of the experience, even throwing away the packaging of the product that you sold them, that is a part of the experience.
Hmm.
Like, every moment of it needs to be thoughtful.
Yeah. I feel like I cut you off before and I'm like hating myself for doing that because I really wanted to know what you were going to say. But I don't know if you even remember what
That's
train of thought you
okay.
on because we were talking just about kind of
Uh,
like the growth with the team and the company, like a profitability standpoint. But I feel like we kind of nailed that unless there was anything else that you're like, oh shit, I didn't say it and I wanted to say it. But
I don't remember. I blocked it
okay,
out.
that's fine. That's
I mean,
totally my fault. It's totally my fault, and I shouldn't have cut you off. I wanted to kind of get deeper there. Okay,
all
so
good.
back to
We're
brand
we're
then,
just
because
interested.
that's what it is. It's like sometimes I forget I'm recording a podcast and I'm just like, tell me more. Which I
Yeah.
guess if I'm curious, I'm sure someone else will be curious. So hopefully that answered
hmm
some questions for people too.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to the brand portion in terms of like building that brand awareness, standing out. You said that you are doing things differently than any other company in your industry. So how was that received by others? Did you have any pushback? And I guess like what is the trajectory moving forward? It seems pretty positive. So assuming it was pretty well received.
I mean, well received by some, but not others. I mean, there's obviously
Okay.
friction, like expected friction when you do things that are unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not a reason to stop. So a really good
Mm-hmm.
example is when we first started, we knew that nobody was going to take us seriously. No stores were going to take on our product until we proved to them that there was a demand for the product. So, out of necessity, we went direct to consumer first. We opened a
Oh,
Shopify store before Shopify was even like a name that people knew. I literally Googled make my own online store, and that was
yeah.
the one that came up. And I was like, cool, we'll go with
Sick.
this. And we started selling on Amazon as well. And that is obviously a business plan that most people are following now. But 7 years ago in the building materials industry, nobody was doing that. And
Mm-hmm.
so we were able to leverage Instagram at the time. It was a highly visual platform. People, designers and contractors were just starting to use that as a way to actually like generate business and get projects. And our product was highly visual, also a little bit strange. Like it created conversation and engagement. And so
Yeah.
the timing kind of just worked. And
Yeah.
once we started to actually get customers through Instagram, they would come easily transact on our Shopify store. And then we would go to retailers and say, hey, I have people buying online. Like, I'm going to show you. There's a market for
Here are
this.
my
Why don't you take
sales.
this
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
Right. And they would still say no. Only until those
Oh,
customers who were buying from us online went to the stores themselves and say, I've been ordering these for every project. I don't want to pay for shipping anymore. And I'm here 2 times a week. Can you guys start carrying them? And
wow.
that's how we built a lot of our B2B business. So we have two channels. We have direct to consumer and B2B, and they kind of feed into each other. Wherever we grow on direct to consumer, that's kind of the top of the funnel that helps support the growth of the B2B. And so obviously now when you go to B2B customers and you, especially in our industry, they can't, they have a difficult time understanding, well, you're selling directly to my customer. Why would I ever carry your product? Like
Mm-hmm.
that is a mental shift that needs to happen in the industry. It's already starting to happen. Luckily, because of 2020, everybody woke up and was like, holy shit, I can't sell anything when my store is closed. I
Yeah.
need to start selling online. And that kind of was a catalyst where we don't really have that conversation as often anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that happens a lot. I mean, even with like, it's reminding me like with Nomad, we started off as a remote agency and there was so much pushback. This was in 2018. And it was a
Mm-hmm.
conversation, and I had to sell and explain that it is possible. We can do our work remote, blah, blah, blah. Now
Yeah.
it's not even a topic of conversation, you know? So, like, I totally
Yeah.
get that. And I think what's so commendable too is that your customers who are buying from you online went themselves to these stores and took it upon themselves and were like, hey, we love this product. You better freaking carry it. You know, like why wouldn't they want
Yeah.
to take the business? So how does that work if we were to compare? I mean, I think we all know for like direct to consumer B2B, like where it's coming from, whether it's the website or like from a store. But from a business standpoint, like how does that affect your margins? And do the B2Bs like get a better price on the product, or do they sell it at a more expensive rate because there's no like shipping included? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, that's a good question. So all of our products are price mapped, which means that there's a minimum advertised price that is on our website and also through our retailers. So if you wanted to buy our product, if you bought it on our website or through a store, you would pay the same price. You just
Mm-hmm.
maybe wouldn't wait or pay for the shipping. That's the only
Mm-hmm.
difference. And so, of course, our B2B partners need to make money. So they'll buy it from us at a wholesale price. We sell larger volumes through B2B. That's
Yeah.
typically the case. And so we can actually scale our B2B easier because we are doing fewer orders that are bigger. Whereas direct to consumer, obviously, we have smaller orders and then there's just so many more. It
Would you
is
say that's the
important.
majority of your business right now?
Which one?
Direct to consumer?
It's a mix. It's a mix of both. It depends also what market you're in. There's a difference. Like in more mature markets or ones that we're just newly entering. What I think is important is that we constantly need to diversify our business. You need to make sure, or for us, um, I don't know about everybody else, but for us, we needed to make sure that we had different channels. We weren't all direct to consumer and we weren't all B2B. Um, that's, I think, what is part of the secret sauce of building a brand quickly and at exponential growth is making sure you're going to market in multiple ways.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is going to market with multiple products, right? Not just vents. That's a big part of the reason why we diversified. How often does somebody buy a vent in their lifetime? Like,
Right.
I don't know, right?
Less,
Um,
yeah,
so
probably
you want
less
to make sure
common.
that you can get you can offer products that make sense. We're not just making products to make products that make sense. They follow our design ethos, and that we can actually maintain that customer and give them new things constantly. We didn't want to build a business just on one product. That
Mm-hmm.
that poses a lot of risk. Um,
Yeah.
And we have this advantage for us is that all of our products are protected by utility patent, which means that nobody can sell anything that looks or functions like our product. And patents are great, but patents are only great if you're willing to defend them and be litigious with them. And so, unfortunately, that is inevitable when you have innovation, and that's also a part of the business model is making sure that we can protect our innovation.
Because you're saying, have other companies tried to kind of knock you guys off? Is that what you're implying?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It happens
That's a compliment, I
literally all the
guess.
time. Yes, it happens all the time. Ask anybody who owns a patent. It happens all the like more frequently than you think, and of course, it's so much easier now than ever before. So
Mm,
that's okay. Like that's a part of it, right? That's a part of making something innovative is that there's going to be people who will pick up on that and try to do their own thing. And so making sure that you're prepared to protect the patent, that's the most important thing. Having a patent is nothing unless you're willing to defend
yeah.
it.
So when you say you're being prepared, does this mean like making sure that there's like a lawyer readily available to like go after these people? What does that look like?
Yeah, making sure that you have a really good patent lawyer, making sure that you have a sustainable company that is profitable, that can afford to defend the patent. That's a big
Mm.
one. Um, and yeah, like those are the main things.
Isn't it crazy that like it's considered an expense for your business to protect like the integrity of your company? Like how shitty is that? Like you have to spend money to make sure that someone doesn't copy the product that you came up with and that like you went out of your way to get a patent for. Like I find that so crazy. But I guess at the end of the day too, if you think about it, the whole reason of like you said, defending and protecting is so that you have that larger market share. Otherwise, if everyone's knocking you off, then they're probably going to do it for cheaper and then you're going to lose your business, right?
Yeah, but like I said, it's the name of the game. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
have a product that's innovative, then you probably are already selling something that, hundreds of other people are already selling. And so how do
Yeah.
you beat them in the market? You beat them with price, you beat them with brand, like you have to have an angle. And
Yeah.
so this is our angle. It's not our
Yeah.
only angle, but it's definitely a part of it. Like we came up with these innovations. Um, we're protecting them and we need to do that. Like,
It's cool. You're probably the first person that I really spoke to. I don't know anyone else who like owns a patent. I feel like a lot of my circle, or even the people that I've interviewed on this podcast are more like service based businesses and brands
mm,
and less product. And if it is product, I don't know that they had like patents or anything. So this is the first time, aside from obviously hearing about it on Shark Tank, I actually don't know much about patents aside from like what they are. But then, like you said, it's the name of the game. So this must be more common than I even realized that you got to do it if you want to protect your business.
yeah. That's
Crazy.
it. By the way, I think that service businesses are so much harder and complex than product businesses. There's so many times where I think like I'm having a rough day and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that like I have a physical product that doesn't expire. Oh my God, so many mistakes would have happened if our products
Mm.
were perishable. So yeah, I think service businesses to me are like a whole other animal, absolutely other animal.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even the industry that you're in for product too, like you mentioned, perishable, like when you're in the food industry, like, yeah, I guess it's a product, but it goes bad and there's so much waste, you know? And what's cool about your business, it's like, it's gonna stick around forever, pretty much. I mean, you're probably gonna make some changes as the years go on, as things change and new things come to market. But ultimately, it is something that you can sustain long term. But you're right. I mean, service based businesses can be challenging because, first of all, like if I were to just even talk about Nomad Creative being a creative agency, I mean, the competition is ridiculous. And my competition
Yeah.
isn't just any other agency, it's also every other freelancer out there. So it's like when I'm, meeting with a potential client and we're doing an intro call, I'm having to differentiate myself from other agencies and from other solopreneurs or freelancers, because we're kind of like in the middle, actually. We bridge the gap between the two, but it doesn't mean that people are going to necessarily believe that like we're the best option. And so sometimes it's like timing, alignment. Our angle is really like the people thing, like our values, how we lead the team, how the company is led, like that all really matters to me. And so hopefully that kind of comes through. And at the end of the day, if it's right, it's right. But that's also like not really a business strategy, like that's what makes it kind of
Yeah.
challenging with services. It's like I feel like there's just like so much more competition. But I guess certain products too, there is more competition. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Your
wonder if
your
I'd be able
product
to
is
run a
people.
product based. Yeah. Oh, people. So complicated. Love them, but God.
Yeah,
Speaking
that's
of
what I'm
people,
saying.
actually, before we wrap up, I know that like company culture and values is super important for you guys. When we initially spoke, you mentioned the fact that like no one has like Slack on their phone, and you want to make sure that your team is disconnected, that they have that good work-life balance. So could you share some of the values within the company and how the team itself is led?
Yeah. So, I mean, none of it is revolutionary. It's really
Yeah.
basic. I wanted to build a company that I wanted to work for,
Mm,
and I don't want to work late and I don't want to work on weekends because I know
preach.
what I'm like when I work late and when I work on weekends. I'm very unhappy,
Yeah.
and unhappy people make very bad employees, and happy people make good employees. And so it's pretty simple. Like, we come to work, we go hard. It is very intense. Like, our hours on are very intense. And
Hmm.
then 4 or 5 o'clock comes around, whenever your end time is. We close the laptops, we go home, we recharge, spend time with our families, do things that bring us joy so that we can come back the next day and then kill it again and do it again. And I think today, especially with working from home, there is such a blurred line between those two spaces, and it can get toxic really fast. And so
Hmm.
as a leader, it is my responsibility to set the tone. I can't be sending emails at 10 o'clock and then be like, don't work, it's okay. Like, ignore that
Right.
email. Like, obviously not. There's so much like coded expectations in when you send an email late at night, especially coming from a superior person, or like a
Right.
boss, right? Not a
Yeah.
superior, but a
Yeah.
boss.
Hmm.
So I set the tone immediately, saying, do not put Slack on your phone. Do not put email on your phone. I could check on the Slack admin where it is logged on.
Like I'm
And
watching you.
yes, because I need to be very like diligent with that.
Yeah.
That's not the expectation. As a company, as your employer, we have absolutely no business being in your pocket 24/7. What is
Yeah.
that? And
I love that.
I know when I get an email or a message about work that gives me a pit, like whatever, while I'm eating dinner, like that throws off the rest of my night. I'm not actually
Hmm.
disengaged, right? Our
Hmm.
work is totally different. Like, the landscape of the work environment is totally different than it was 50 years ago. 50 years ago, people worked on assembly lines. They left. They like did not mentally were not thinking about work. We are
Yeah.
constantly thinking about work. We're
Hmm.
coming down every day from like, oh, you have thoughts of like, oh, that'll work, blah blah blah. That's great. Like, that's a part of human nature. We don't need to perpetuate that by
Hmm.
mandating these ridiculous things. And so for a lot of people who join, there's like a 3 4 month thawing period where they come
Thawing.
down from that. Like, they are shook.
God.
They join and they're like, oh, I don't know if I can not put email on my phone. I'm like, don't put it. Trust me, don't put it on. I'll check. And then they're like,
Wow.
be anxious about it. And
Yeah.
after 3 months, they're like, a little bit more calm. It's fine. The pace, we're not saving lives. Like, we're not doctors. Like, we're
Yeah.
selling vents. It's okay. Like, nothing is that important. Your health
I
and your well-being, that's what I care about.
Oh my God. I love this. It feels so good to like hear, and I can really like see and feel the passion coming from you too. And like you said, it comes from the leader. So like you're setting the example for your whole team. And I mean with the passion that you're even sharing right now, like I can see how they're like, all right, fine, I'll relax, you know? Like I
Yeah.
hope so.
And
And go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, like, everything comes out in the wash. Like, if you
Mm,
have the right people in the right places and you show them respect and you teach them and you treat them like human beings, they're gonna give you good work. there are certain times where you do all of that and they don't, and that's why like our way that we build our business and our culture, there's a huge amount of accountability. Like there
Hmm.
are very clear operational ways that we keep people accountable. The main one is really scorecards. The scorecards are amazing. It is super clear for yourself and for the other team member of like how effective you're being in your role. It happens every month. There's, green, yellow, red. Wherever the reds are, those are the flags that come up. And that's when you start talking about there's a lot of red here. Like, what are your days like? Oh, I'm working really late after. Okay, like, hold on, stop. Like,
Okay, wait,
let's
wait,
get to
wait.
the bottom of this.
So what are these scorecards like? They're filling them out?
Yeah, so every team member, myself and my dad included, we all have scorecards. These scorecards get filled out once a month by
What's on them
the
though?
the, the team. Like key metrics, a lot of them are like
Okay.
numbers, and
Okay.
then some of them is like what I call the fluffy stuff, which is more subjective. Our company values are there. And so every month you have to kind of give examples of how you showed up in the company values or how you didn't. And it becomes a conversation, a way to facilitate a conversation so that it's actually really nice as a team member to know, oh, I'm actually killing it. Like this scorecard is sick. It
Hmm.
feels really good. And then also with performance evaluation, it becomes very clear, um,
Mm,
like where you stand.
that's
So
cool.
the scorecards are critical because they give you that operationalized accountability so that I don't need to be checking, oh, they came in half an hour late today. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're half an hour late. What's your scorecard look like? Are we doing what we need to do? Like, that's what I care about. So it keeps
Mm.
us focused.
Yeah, and it keeps people like accountable for themselves too. So you're not always having to
Yeah.
like breathe down their necks. They get to kind of use that as a reference point and be like, and a reference point for you too. Like maybe there is like a gap or something that needs to be fixed if there's a common thing between all of the employees and you know where to look and what to change, which is super cool. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. And before we finish every episode, I always like to ask and do a segment called the Mindful Minute. So, I mean, you've given a lot of advice and insight so far, but if there was one piece of advice that you would share with anyone listening, whether it's an entrepreneur, or someone who's thinking of starting a brand, what would that be?
This is a really good question. My mantra that I say all the time is, and I think I've probably said it a couple times in this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just for business, it's like in life. It's not what you do, it's how you do it.
Mm,
How you show up, how you navigate difficult times, stressful periods, awkward conversations, the wins, the lows, like everything. That's what matters, not what the outcome is.
yeah, so true. I agree with that for sure. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing all about the company that you've built with your dad. I can't wait to see where you guys go and just take over the industry since that is the goal. Where can everybody go to learn more about Fits on social, website, all that stuff?
Yeah, so you can find all of our products at fitts.com, fitts.com, and you can follow us on Instagram at Fitts
Perfect.
and
Easy
TikTok.
peasy.
And
Oh,
TikTok.
on
Yeah,
TikTok.
go. Yeah, we're TikTokers.
We're TikToking. Oh, I didn't see your TikTok. I'm going to go check it out. All right. That's
I
it, guys.
honestly I haven't seen it either.
What? Okay, we're
It's
gonna
I don't
sign
have
off and go check out
it.
TikTok, as should you, listeners. So we'll chat next week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Bye.